personally think we have left and entered the land of insanity here, but I guess we got to do what we got to do. The unfortunate thing is that I don't see any of the new drivers locally at all. In fact, a lot of the people that run this at one of our local on-road courses are running in the carpet national championships right now in Cleveland, and they all have Losis. So that's kind of weird, isn't it? Thought this was supposed to be a novice class to grow the hobby. What's up, guys? Chad from the Dorky M40 RC channel. So we just finished up with a pretty dang good race week. Yesterday, we were able to secure victory in the 21.5 Just Stock Buggy class with the R1 B7. And during our Wednesday Oval Series, I once again was able to secure the TQ and the top spot in my 25.5 Sportsman truck. But when it comes to the Losi Nascar, we qualified dead last. We were able to sneak in to 6th place in the end, and we had some problems with the car. So we're going to talk about that and what we're going to do for next week right now in the video. So take a look at the actual car here. Biggest thing that held me back there in the main was the fact that I had taken a couple shots up front, and this is something that I hadn't noticed before because I have dropped my front body post down one notch to drop down the front of the body. So I really didn't notice it a whole lot, but this whole underneath part was basically dragging a little bit. And during one of the shots, during one of the qualifiers or something like that, right before I set my car down on the track, I noticed that one of these sides, I believe, yeah, it was this side, was literally hanging down all the way. And it was because these screws had pushed through the plastic and the bumper was all deformed and everything. So literally in the entire race, I was dragging this corner. So these two corner screws that go up through here have been replaced with some longer bolts, some M2.5s. So that way that is secured and we don't have to worry about that again. I also did this one right here, which is kind of for the middle parts. I don't think they're as important, but you might notice that these on yours might start to push through. And if you're oval racing or doing any racing with this thing, you might want to go ahead and swap those screws out. So the other thing, notice that we have been collecting more data, and the more data that we collect, the weirder things get. For example, my body is an original Kyle Busch body with added stickers, and my body actually weighs less by 5 grams since most bodies weighed around 108 to like 112. So that's a pretty good weight savings. And like I said, I've got added stickers on mine, and people have like done their own painted bodies and done tricks and everything else to try to lighten them up a little bit. And hey, like out of the box, I got the lighter body, so I don't really have to worry about any of that good stuff. Big thing we need to work on is the shocks, man. And you can just see cleaning the tires also, it seems like with like acetone or alcohol versus things like brake cleaner is definitely a little bit nicer for the rubber as well. So that's something I'm definitely going to start doing. But you can see the tire wear and just where the shiny spots are. You know, we got inside, outside here, inside, outside in the rear. These balloon a little bit, so that would be typical normal. We would want things to be a little bit flatter. But then, of course, when we go to the front, this is when things look very weird because we're riding on our inside edges because the car is basically, you know, digging in like this. And this tire here with the glue is holding the car up basically a little bit more. So we're going to need to add a lot more glue here to this front tire, even higher, like probably up around to about there would probably work out the best. The other thing we needed to do is work on these shocks. Now, a couple weeks ago, I was trying all kinds of different things. And I think this is going to depend on obviously your carpet, your grip, your surface, and everything else. So I went from like 80 in the front, 40 in the rear to 60 all around. And it is just way too much. Like this car needs to roll and maneuver in a certain way. So basically you can stay on throttle the entire time. I'm not able to, and that is what is killing me. Like I have to like feather the throttle in order to like maintain the line. And then since the car is 4-wheel drive, to depending upon where you're entering or exiting the corner and applying the throttle and what tire is on the ground, it's really what is making the car unpredictable when it comes to driving. So I'm going to go like super light on the oils. One racer said he was running it between like, you know, he couldn't remember if it was 30, 32 and a half or 35. So we're just going to do 35 in all of them. And then the other thing is that we're not going to play around with trying to push down like the springs on the right side and everything else like that. So I think the car right now, I just want to make it predictable in how it moves. So I'm going to find a good ride height that doesn't scrape on our track with what the shocks in the car is doing. And then I might put just like an extra turn or two on the front right. Nothing crazy at all. One thing we did find during testing is that if your track allows you to add weight to the left side of this car, like add the weight. Definitely add the weight, and a lot of it, like 100 grams, 150 grams, 200 grams. It will actually make the car faster. I mean, a lot of new guys don't know stuff like this, but you know, my left truck up there that we talk about, all of its weight is on the left side. Like we've got tungsten screws on the left side versus aluminum screws on the right, all kinds of trickery and stuff like that to make weight and also strategically place the weight. Hopefully we get to a point sometime where everybody can agree that we can do something like that to clean up the racing. But for right now, it's not allowed at our track. And that's just kind of the way that it is. So as we're doing oil, we're basically rebuilding the entire shock. And this is pretty crazy that we have to go to these lengths, you know, to be competitive with a box stock car. But, you know, if you want to win, you want to win. The problem that one of the faster racers said is two things. So we want to check our shock length, but we need to figure out a way to have our bottom cap tight enough to not leak, which it shouldn't because it's pretty nice threading, and not bind up the shock and not let the shock wiggle too much. So you're going to have to find, I mean, it's pretty, the shock is going to wiggle even at full cap. So I think we're pretty good with that. What you're trying to do is we're going to try to find a place, and you should be able to feel it, where you can just feel that the shock itself is just moving a lot easier and freer. And at that point, we're going to basically put the oil back in, do all that kind of fun stuff. And then we're going to put our shock ends back on and our spacer. And I am just going to measure from the bottom of the spacer to the shock end or whatever, and get all of these the same length. So I've done this before and they were all pretty close, but it's just something that I'm going to go through again. I also just tore the shock apart. There's 2 O-rings and 1 spacer in there. And I put in some of my PTFE from R1. It's basically like green slime. That way you can kind of hold the oil a little bit and kind of smoothens, you know, things out a little bit, creates a little less friction in there. So I'm going to go through, do all that with all 4 shocks. We're going to get 32.5 weight oil in there, and that should free this car up and give us a lot of roll movement. If you've never seen me fill one of these shocks before, I'll put the video right up here. So that way you can see the proper way to like bleed these things. And, you know, just after doing them in one race, the shocks already had a little bit of rebound in them. So these shocks are definitely, you know, they're an emulsion shock. There's nothing else. Like if your car starts acting really funny after it's been acting pretty good, chances are you're probably going to need to bleed them, and you're only going to be able to bleed these things a couple times before you're going to have to fill them again. If you're going to take them off to bleed them, I would literally just go ahead and change the fluid because it's not even worth it at that point. Got the front shocks back on, and you can just see that definitely, you know, compared to the 32.5 to the 60, just you can see that the front definitely does just dip a lot better and a lot more than the 60. But, you know, again, the variability, I know people's cars that are running on higher fluids and run just fine. So it really comes down to, honestly, we don't know your car, I guess, and, you know, just how everything is together and everything else. some people claim that are winning races or podium all the time that they haven't touched their cars at all. And I have no reason to not believe them, but I don't really believe them. Based off of your comments and messages that I've got personally from a lot of you guys, it kind of sucks because basically when all the fast guys get tired of running at these cars and seeing what they can do with them, then they're just going to go on to something else. And then the tracks are not even going to be getting the income that they were getting from those guys. So again, I asked, where are these new racers at? Let's start playing with this thing, right? Okay, all done, and that definitely feels a lot rockier. So all I'm going to do now is just put some more glue on that tire, and this baby is going to be ready for race day. And I guess at this point, we're trying to figure out what works, but the best thing is that we're figuring out what doesn't work, at least for my car. So hopefully we can get to a point where we find something that if it works for me, I think it should work for a lot of you and keep everybody legal and happy and fun and all that kind of stuff. So, because I don't enjoy seeing the comments where people have sold their cars because they're not happy with the race program that they're in. They're not happy with the way the car performs, everything else. Hopefully I can get some kind of results with this thing and make a podium or two one of these days and show you that I'm not just full of shit and we've been sitting here talking about nothing. But we definitely won't be for the lack of trying. That is for sure. So we will talk to all you guys later. Peace.